In the heart of Kumasi, where colonial-era buildings blend with modern skylines, stands a towering five-star building, the Golden Horizon Hotel. Inside this luxurious paradise of polished marble floors, gold-plated elevators, and chandelier-lit lobbies, works a humble soul named Sonia. Sonia, a 25-year-old Ghanaian woman with rich ebony skin, high cheekbones, and expressive dark brown eyes, had worked as a waitress here for 3 years. Her long black braids were always neatly tied into a bun, and her petite frame, wrapped in a modest burgundy uniform, moved gracefully between tables. Her voice was soft, almost musical, and her smile, warm and genuine, had become something of a trademark among the regular guests. Despite earning just enough to afford a cramped one-room apartment on the edge of town, Sonia never complained. Her co-workers often wondered how she stayed so kind, so grounded, while many around her became bitter or arrogant. What made Sonia different was her heart. Every night, when her shift ended and most staff hurried home or gossiped in groups, Sonia would quietly gather untouched bread rolls, leftover rice, and grilled meat from the buffet line. She wrapped them in brown paper and placed them gently in a small food bag. She wasn't doing this out of pity or obligation. She did it out of love, for humanity. At the edge of the hotel's tall iron gates, a few meters from the bustling street, several homeless men often sat silently, watching the world pass them by. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned golden orange, Sonia stepped outside, her shoes clicking softly on the hotel steps. The city air smelled of roasted corn, exhaust fumes, and the thick humidity of an approaching storm. She looked around. There they were, 5 men, all looking tired, dusty, and invisible to most. Among them sat a man she hadn't noticed before. He looked different. Not just because he was new, but because of the way he sat, with dignity. His name, she would later learn, was Alex. But for now, he was simply the quiet man with the book. Unlike the others who often stretched out their hands or called to passers-by, this man didn't ask for anything. He just sat there, back straight, reading a worn-out copy of a novel. His appearance was rugged, maybe mid-30s, a short, well-trimmed beard beginning to gray at the chin, thick eyebrows, strong jawline. His clothes were dusty and torn at the edges, an old olive green shirt, faded brown trousers, and worn-out sandals. But his presence radiated calm. Sonia approached him first. "Good evening," she said, her voice gentle. The man looked up from his book, revealing eyes that were a warm, quiet shade of amber brown. He blinked, surprised, then smiled. A real smile, the kind that reaches the eyes. "Good evening," he replied, his voice low and polite. "I brought some food," Sonia said, handing him the bundle. He took it with both hands, almost reverently. "Thank you very much," he said slowly, as though the words carried great meaning. Sonia hesitated for a moment, curious. But she didn't pry. She nodded and turned to leave. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about the man with the book. The following week, the city of Kumasi continued its dance of life. Morning traffic snarled under the thick sun, horns blaring and voices rising. At the Golden Horizon Hotel, guests in pressed linen suits and flowing dresses came and went. But for Sonia, something had changed. Every day after her shift, Sonia carried her small bundle of food to the street corner near the hotel gate. And every day, the quiet man, Alex, would be there, sitting on the same concrete slab, reading the same tattered book. But what began as a simple act of kindness slowly became something else. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees and the streetlights blinked on, Sonia brought a small bottle of water with the food. She hesitated a moment before speaking. "You like to read," she said softly. Alex looked up, his amber brown eyes catching the light. He gave a slight smile, the kind that held more emotion than words. "It helps the mind travel," Alex replied, his voice calm and deep. Sonia sat down, just for a moment, beside him on the edge of the curb. It was the first time she had done that. She noticed how clean he tried to keep himself. His beard was neatly trimmed, his shirt had been washed, even if it was old, it had been scrubbed by hand. She could smell soap faintly on him. "You don't talk much like the others," she said. Alex chuckled softly, closing his book. "Sometimes silence says more." That intrigued her. "What's your name?" Sonia asked, tilting her head, her braids shifting over her shoulder. Alex, he replied. I'm Sonia. I know. I've seen your name tag. She laughed, the kind of laugh that made strangers turn and smile without knowing why. From that evening, it became their quiet routine. She'd bring food, and they'd talk. Just a few minutes. About life. About books. About the sky, and how it always looked more orange in Kumasi than in any other place. One night, it rained suddenly. The hotel staff rushed out with umbrellas for guests, and the streets shimmered with reflections of red brake lights. Sonia had just finished her shift and remembered she had forgotten her umbrella. She clutched the food in her hands and ran. When she reached the gate, she found Alex sitting under the edge of a wooden awning he had built from cardboard and old crates. He stood up immediately. Come, he said, stepping aside to give her shelter. She stood next to him, their shoulders nearly touching, and handed him the food. You're getting wet, Alex said, pulling part of the awning closer to shield her. In the dim light, Sonia looked at him closely. His eyes held something different that night. Not sorrow, not desperation, but dignity. Something in her heart shifted. You're not like the others out here, she said quietly. Are you really homeless? Alex looked at her for a long moment. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Does it matter? He asked gently. Sonia didn't know how to answer. She just stood there, watching the rain fall on the street as silence grew between them, not uncomfortable, but powerful. The rains passed, and Kumasi's streets bloomed green and alive again. But in Sonia's heart, the seeds of curiosity had taken root. She couldn't stop thinking about Alex, the homeless man who spoke like a professor, looked her in the eye with calm grace, and never once asked for help. Sonia found herself distracted during her shifts. Her manager scolded her twice for forgetting customer orders. She apologized, but her mind was elsewhere. That evening, she waited a bit longer than usual after work. She stood near the hotel lobby windows, watching the people come and go, the wealthy tourists, the business guests, the city's elite. She then stepped outside, clutching the food container she had packed for Alex, as always. As she reached the street corner, he wasn't there. Her heart dropped. She looked around, scanning the sidewalk. Maybe he had gone elsewhere? Maybe he had left Kumasi? The thought made her chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. Just as she turned to leave, a voice called out behind her. I'm here. She turned sharply and saw Alex, emerging from a nearby alley, holding a small package wrapped in cloth. I didn't want to sit in my usual spot. Too noisy today, he said. Sonia smiled with relief, then frowned as her gaze dropped to the wrapped bundle in his hands. What's that? A book, Alex replied with a light chuckle. One I borrowed from a library 2 months ago. You still borrow books? She asked, surprised. I never stopped. I just don't keep them long. They sat down again on the curb. A cool breeze passed through the trees, making the street lamps flicker. Alex, Sonia began slowly, can I ask you something? He nodded. You're different. You speak like someone educated. You clean yourself. You read. You don't beg. You listen. And, she hesitated, sometimes, you look at the hotel like you belong there. Alex's face remained calm, unreadable. Do you? He smiled faintly, looking out toward the Golden Horizon Hotel, its lights glowing like gold in the distance. I used to, he whispered. That single line struck Sonia like thunder. You used to what? He didn't answer. Are you hiding something? She asked gently. Alex turned to look at her. Would it change how you see me? Sonia didn't answer at first. Her hands tightened around the food container on her lap. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe. Maybe not. For the first time since they met, the silence between them wasn't peaceful, it was heavy. Alex, she said quietly, are you truly homeless? He stared at the street ahead. What if I told you I had a life before this? A name, a title, money? Would you still sit with me? Sonia looked into his amber-brown eyes and felt a strange fear grow in her chest. Was she falling for a man who wasn't who he said he was? Or was he being more honest than anyone else she'd ever met? That night, they didn't speak much after that. When she handed him the food, their hands brushed, and the electricity between them was unmistakable. She walked home alone, her heart heavier than before, her thoughts filled with questions she didn't know how to ask. The Golden Horizon Hotel shimmered under the afternoon sun. It was a busy Saturday, and the lobby was packed with international guests and local elites attending a business summit. Tension filled the air as security personnel paced near the elevators, journalists loitered outside, and staff rushed to meet the high standards the event demanded. Sonia was unusually quiet that day. Her steps were mechanical, her eyes distracted. Since her conversation with Alex, her heart hadn't rested. She kept recalling his words, "What if I told you I had a name, a title?" It gnawed at her thoughts. Who was he really? Suddenly, chaos erupted near the reception desk. Guests gasped and staff whispered as a loud voice cut through the crowd. "You have no right to be here. Leave immediately." A young security officer was arguing with Alex, who stood calmly just outside the hotel's grand entrance. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Alex said firmly, raising his hands in peace. "You were warned before," shouted the officer. Sonia, standing near the bar with a tray of drinks, recognized the voice instantly. She turned, and her heart froze. It was Alex. Without thinking, she rushed toward the entrance. "What's going on?" she asked breathlessly, stepping between Alex and the security guard. "This man has been seen loitering too often," the officer snapped. "He doesn't belong in a place like this." "But he's done nothing wrong," Sonia insisted, glancing at Alex, whose eyes held no fear, only quiet sadness. A few guests were now filming the scene on their phones. Suddenly, an older man in a tailored grey suit, escorted by two managers, approached the commotion. His presence silenced the whispers. He was Mr. Baudieu, the acting general manager of the hotel. "What's the problem?" Mr. Baudieu asked, adjusting his glasses. "This homeless man again, sir," the officer replied. "He's been coming too close to the entrance." Mr. Baudieu, a 60-year-old Ghanaian man with light brown skin, a bald head, square-framed glasses, and a formal accent, turned to look at Alex. The moment their eyes met, Mr. Baudieu's face changed. He stepped forward, his voice softer now. "Sir." Alex looked him in the eye and replied with quiet authority, "It's good to see you again, Baudieu." A murmur ran through the crowd. Sonia stood frozen. Mr. Baudieu cleared his throat, now clearly nervous. "Everyone, please, resume your business." He leaned toward the security officer and whispered something. The officer stepped back immediately, apologizing under his breath. "Please," Mr. Baudieu said to Alex, "come inside." But Alex shook his head. "Not yet." He turned to Sonia, his gaze warm but heavy. "I didn't want it to happen like this." Her voice trembled. "You know him?" "Yes. I used to run this place," he said simply. Gasps echoed again. "You, what?" "I was the owner before I left everything behind. For a reason." Sonia stepped back, her thoughts spiraling. Why had he left? Why was he living like this? And why did her heart still beat faster for him, now even more? Later that evening, as the sun set and the chaos died down, Sonia found Alex seated on a stone bench near the hotel garden. "Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked softly. "I needed to know if someone could see me," Alex replied. "Not my wealth. Not my title. Just me." Tears welled in Sonia's eyes. "I did." The following morning, the entire city buzzed with whispers about the mysterious man at Golden Horizon Hotel. A once invisible face had suddenly become the subject of fascination and speculation. Inside the hotel, the staff worked quietly, exchanging glances and half-spoken thoughts. But Sonia was lost in her own thoughts, barely hearing the usual chatter of colleagues. Everything she had once believed about had shifted. And yet, her feelings hadn't changed. If anything, they had only grown deeper. During her lunch break, she walked slowly to the back garden where she had last seen him. He was gone. She searched the nearby park. Empty. Later that evening, just as the sun dipped below the skyline of the city, casting golden hues over the buildings, she found him again, not at the hotel, but at a quiet chapel tucked between two old colonial structures. She had passed by it countless times without noticing. Alex was sitting at the steps, staring at the horizon in silence. "I thought you left," she said, stepping closer. I did. In my mind, many times, he replied without turning. But my heart keeps pulling me back. Sonia sat beside him, close but not touching. I don't understand, she said softly. You were the owner. Why did you give it all up? He finally turned to face her. My father built that hotel from nothing. I inherited it, yes. But after he passed, I was surrounded by people who only saw wealth. Not one person looked me in the eye unless they wanted something. He paused, breathing deeply. I left to see the world without filters. I left to find truth, and maybe someone who would care about the man, not the name. Sonia was silent. His words were heavy. True. Painful. And you, Alex said, his voice trembling slightly, you treated me with kindness when you thought I had nothing. That's more than most ever did when I had everything. Tears welled up in Sonia's eyes. She tried to speak but her voice cracked. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel. That's okay, he said gently. I never expected anything. I just wanted you to know the truth. Even if that means you walk away. She looked at him again, this time not as a poor man or a hotel mogul, but as someone deeply human, deeply broken, and deeply sincere. But I don't want to walk away, she said suddenly. They sat in silence for a long time, listening to the quiet sounds of the city's twilight. Later that night, back at her small rented room, Sonia pulled out an old photo of her mother, the woman who had taught her dignity, humility, and faith. She remembered her words, it's not what a man has, but what he gives from the heart that matters. The next morning, Sonia returned to the hotel early and handed her resignation letter to Mr. Baudieu. He raised an eyebrow. Where will you go? I'm not sure yet, she answered calmly. But I think I found someone worth walking beside. A week had passed since Sonia handed in her resignation. She had not heard from Alex since their last conversation at the chapel. Each day, she went about her routine, searching for a new job, helping her elderly neighbor carry groceries, cooking for herself with simple ingredients, but her heart felt strangely at peace. No longer did she feel trapped. Something inside her had awakened. Meanwhile, the staff at Golden Horizon Hotel buzzed louder than ever. Rumors had now been confirmed, the true owner had returned. But not as the man they remembered, aloof, formal, distant, but as someone transformed. That morning, luxury cars lined the hotel entrance. A press conference had been scheduled. Investors, reporters, and high society guests poured into the grand ballroom. Inside the majestic room, with its chandeliers shimmering and polished marble floors reflecting golden light, Alex stepped up to the microphone. He looked calm, composed, and powerful, yet humble. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, I thank you for being here today, but this is not a celebration of wealth or business. Today, I return as a man who finally understands the true worth of people. He paused. Cameras flashed. Silence stretched. I stepped away not to abandon this empire, but to find something I had lost, humanity. And I found it, in the eyes of someone who treated me with dignity when she believed I had nothing. He turned away from the microphone briefly, eyes moist. I've decided that Golden Horizon will become more than just a hotel. We will fund skill-building programs for underprivileged youth. We will open our doors to train the very people the world turns away. He took a deep breath. And all of this is inspired by one woman. Outside the hotel, Sonia walked past slowly, unaware that her name had just been spoken inside. She wasn't there for attention. She was simply returning a borrowed book to the hotel library, a small promise she'd made. A security guard called her name. Miss Sonia. Please wait. She turned, surprised. Moments later, Alex appeared at the doors. He approached her, surrounded by flashing cameras and onlookers, but he saw only her. I thought you were gone, Sonia said softly. I was, he smiled. Until I realized my future means nothing if it doesn't include you. She looked at him, unsure. What about the world you belong to? I don't fit in there. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. I don't want you to fit into a world I once thought mattered. I want us to build a new one, together. He opened the box. Inside was not a ring, but a key, a symbol. This key opens a house by the coast. It's not grand, but it's ours if you want it. I don't offer diamonds. I offer peace, honesty, and a life with someone who saw me at my lowest and stayed. Sonia's eyes filled with tears. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Yes, she whispered. Cheers erupted from the entrance as staff members recognized her. But in that moment, Sonia and Alex were in a world of their own. Their story was no longer about a waitress and a homeless man. It was about two souls who saw beyond status and found love where no one else looked. In a world that often values appearance, status, and material wealth, this story reminds us that true worth lies in the heart. Sonia chose kindness when no one was watching. She treated Alex not as a beggar, but as a human, and that made all the difference. This tale teaches us to see beyond the surface, to show compassion without expectation, and to believe that real love doesn't chase luxury, it embraces truth. Sometimes, the person you're helping today might be the very person who changes your tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more life-changing stories. And remember, your small act of kindness could be someone's miracle. Thank you for watching.